Hey, welcome back. I'm Alaina. Should I feel guilty for not wanting to work? By the end of this video, I'm going to show you the key to success, and it doesn't involve guilt. So stay tuned. First, I'm going to go over the most toxic emotion that you're probably feeling and how it's getting in the way of running your business. Next, I'm going to reveal the real reason why you're feeling guilty for not working, and it's probably not what you think. Then what to do about why you don't really want to work. And I'll reveal how to change your thinking to create a success mindset. Plus this one disease that could be keeping you from success in your business. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to take time off guilt-free and still scale and grow your business. So let's get started. What guilt really means is there's something wrong with something that I've done. Shame means there's something wrong with me. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the David Hawkins scale of consciousness, but it's a consciousness scale that was tested based on emotions, and the emotions range from 0 to 1,000. And guilt and shame is way on the bottom. Shame is 20 and guilt is 40. It's like way on the bottom of that scale. They are the most toxic emotions that you can experience. Now, where does guilt even come from? Because guilt doesn't exist in nature. You don't see squirrels guilting other squirrels for having too many nuts, right? You don't see birds tossing birds out of the nest for taking too much of the worms. It just doesn't exist in nature. It is a control mechanism that has been initiated at some point in history. I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but at some point in history, people realized that it's an effective way of controlling people. Because here's the insidious thing about guilt and shame. Once guilt and shame has been introduced to you, then you start to run with it on your own. It's like the people who were guilting you to begin with, your parents, for example. I know I grew up in a major guilt home where everything was controlled by guilt. Even still, they try to use guilt now. It doesn't work on me, but they still try to use guilt now, right? But the one thing about guilt is that you pick it up and then start guilting yourself after that. So the original people, your parents who guilted you, your teachers, your preachers, whoever they are, no longer have to guilt you because now you start doing it yourself. The real reason that you want to take time off of work is typically because people are feeling burnt out, exhausted, overwhelmed, or they're not aligned with their purpose. And when you're not aligned with your purpose, it just doesn't feel good. There's some inner sense of discontent, or you're working way harder than you have to be. And I know when I was a lawyer and I worked 60 to 80 hours a week. So first of all, I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, burnt out, overwhelmed, and exhausted, right? But then I also wasn't aligned with my purpose. And I just had this massive escape plan. Like I just kept thinking, what if I could take off from work for like months at a time and never have to go back? And that's often what happens when you feel either burnt out, exhausted, or overwhelmed, or you're not aligned with your purpose, is that you build escape plans and go, I don't want to work. And then you feel guilty for not wanting to work because you were raised to believe that that's what you need to do. People are only valuable if they work. People are only valuable based on how hard they work. That's what we're taught. Not true at all, but that's what we're taught when we're really little. So it would make sense based on what you were taught, on this limiting belief that was essentially ingrained in you, that you now believe, oh, me wanting to have this escape plan and sitting on a beach in Tahiti drinking Mai Tais for a month now would make you feel guilty. So most people have convinced themselves that if they're not productive, if they're not doing, then they're wasting their time and energy. But here's the thing, you are not a human doing. You are a human being. And that is really the key. We are meant to be. And the more we build in spaciousness to be in our lives, the less we feel overwhelmed, exhausted, wanting to have an escape plan in the first place. Now, if you are not aligned with your purpose, if you are not living your purpose, then the key is to find what you can do to live your purpose. Even if it's literally just an hour a day, start doing it. And it will make you feel so much more enthusiasm for life, so much more enlivened as a result. Because the key is to start putting as much energy into what your purpose is, not necessarily time. There's a really big difference between putting time in and putting energy in. And when you can start putting energy into what you are aligned with, it will shift the entire experience you have of your life. Now, I really love to help people work significantly less and scale their purpose-driven businesses. So please like and subscribe, because I will be dropping content on a daily basis that will help you do just that. Now, if you are feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, and exhausted, then you're living in a pretty chronic state in your sympathetic nervous system that's in some form of fight, flight, or freeze. Now, when you're living in that state, everything takes so much longer to do and is so much harder to do. It's like massive heavy lifting. And part of that is because you can't access higher levels of intelligence, inspiration, creativity, and ideas. Creativity flows when you're in your parasympathetic nervous system. It's like dammed up. It's like, imagine your creativity being like a river, and the river gets dammed up when you're in your sympathetic nervous system. So one of the keys to allow that creativity to flow, to allow those ideas and inspiration and be able to access your intuitive guidance, which will help you so much in your life move forward without feeling like you need not to work, right? Because here's the thing, when we're living our purpose on a regular basis, we actually love to work. And if you understand how to work your purpose in a way that you're not working 60 to 80 hours a week and you're working less than 40 hours a week, it's actually a lot of fun, right? And the key is to build a life you don't need a vacation from. That's really the key. Vacations are awesome. I love to travel. I love to explore new places, but I do it because it adds adventure to my life. I don't do it because I need the escape plan anymore. And there's a really big difference between the two. Now, it's rarely ever the thing that's really going on that's causing us stress in the first place. It's the thing underlying the thing. And so we think, for example, oh, it's this task I have to do that's causing the issue. It isn't the task itself. It's the meaning that you're making out of having to do that task. And when you start to look at the fact that we are meaning-making machines, and we're always making meanings out of experience and circumstances, and it's the meaning that we're making out of those experiences and circumstances that are leading to the emotions that we're experiencing. So when we are able to shift the meaning that we're making out of it to be actually a more and true accurate meaning, because the meaning that we're making out of it is really coming from our past paradigm, from our past experiences, and we're projecting those past experiences onto the current situation. And so we're not seeing the current situation for what it really is. We're really reliving the past is essentially what's happening. And I'm going to give you just a quick example of this. I had a doctor client, and when I was working with her, she was completely overwhelmed, burned out, and exhausted. So she would have a lot of relationship issues because she was feeling in this state of being all the time, right? Burned out, overwhelmed, and exhausted. And what she would do is talk to her husband in a certain way because, like most of my clients, she was a control freak, and she would want to control how he did everything. And his past experience was that that's how his mother was. So for him, it triggered him. Every time she would get really controlling, it would trigger him, and his anger would come up, and the way he would react to her would be exactly how her father treated her when she was a little girl. So they were reliving this parental relationship back and forth, and both blaming the other for what was going on, not realizing it had nothing to do with what she was saying or what he was saying. It had to do with their past relationships with their parents. And once they were both, I actually did a session with both of them. I actually did 2 sessions with both of them to help them understand this. And once they did, they had this massive aha, these massive epiphanies, because they went, oh. So they were able to take responsibility for their own triggers and start healing their own triggers, so they weren't continuously playing out these past patterns with each other. Now it allowed her to experience a different state in her work and be more more creative in her work and start freeing up more time so that she could focus more on the things that she really loved to do. So as I was talking about, it was the meaning that people are making up about things, and that creates a level of inner friction. Now, what inner friction means is an emotional response that can be anything from slight tension to a full-on trigger-inducing meltdown. And this is really what's making everything in your experience feel really hard, right? It's that inner friction that happens. And so when we're able to clear that inner friction and clear those old stories, then you can have a different experience, and it can bring lightness into the situation rather than all of that heaviness. Now, one of the keys to be able to do this is to really shift your mindset, to be able to clear limiting beliefs and shift your mindset. And I'm not going to go into this extensively in this video now because I've recorded a great video on how to do just that. How do you balance work and family life? So check out that video and it will tell you exactly how to do just that. And one of the keys is to learn how to reframe your circumstances. I've become a master reframer of people's circumstances. Let's say, for example, that there was a really big client that you wanted to work with and they decided not to work with you. Now, that might bring up disappointment, rejection, all kinds of other emotions. If you reframed that, however, as, oh, they self-selected themselves out to allow an even better client to come through, now you're opening up possibility and allowing that spaciousness for a different client to come through because you're not getting caught up in making stories up about why that client didn't decide to work with you after all. One of the other things that's really super helpful, because a lot of my clients tend to be real perfectionists and they really ride themselves a lot, and I can understand this. I'm a recovering perfectionist myself, so I really understand this. But they ride themselves a lot when they don't achieve at the level of excellence that they believe they should at the time they believe. So in the amount of time that they think it should take to do it. So when you focus on the process of what you're doing and acknowledge yourself for the process and for your accomplishments, even if they're small, they may feel small to you, they may even feel insignificant, but they are not, and they build on top of each other. I have my clients do this process called 50 Stack of Awesome sometimes, and it's literally to write down 50 ways, and you can't stop. I mean, you could do it in more than one session, but you can't stop until you get 50 ways that you're awesome about this one thing, whatever this one thing. And you start to realize, first of all, it makes you reach, but also you start to realize how accomplished you really are and how much you have not acknowledged yourself for even those small accomplishments. So even the small things, celebrate and acknowledge yourself. And also learn how to heal yourself from this disease that I call comparisonitis. And there's such a tendency, particularly for high performers, to compare yourself to other people in your space who you perceive as doing really well. Now, here's the thing that I'm going to tell you. First of all, people are really good at projecting that they're doing better than they really are. That's the first thing. I talk to a lot of clients that from the outside, if you looked, you'd think they were far more successful than they actually really are, right? So that's the first thing to understand, is that most people project a level of success in the outside world that they aren't actually experiencing. They're only showing their highlight reels. They're not showing what's really going on backstage behind the scenes. And so you are comparing your worst to somebody else's highlight reels. Everybody has a different journey. Everybody's here to learn different things. You have different skills and talents, different networks, right? Different capacities. And the key is when you start focusing on yourself, when you start focusing on how great you actually are, and I don't mean that from an ego sense, from an arrogance perspective, but we all have our greatness. We all have our something special that makes us unique, right? And when we focus on that and get out of comparison, it allows you to really enjoy what you're doing so much more. So again, life becomes far more of an adventure than the need for an escape plan. And the last thing that I'm going to say is chillax. It's like learn how to chill out and relax. right? Whatever you need to do to bring more chill space. As I said before, you're a human being, not a human doing. And the more that you can bring fun and relaxation into your life, the less you will feel like you need to take a break from your life, and it will help ditch that guilt. So one of the things that I absolutely love to do and I'm super passionate about is helping clients work significantly less, because none of us are made to work really hard. So I would love for you to go right now and register for my free mini course on 5 ways to work 20 to 30 hours a week less while making more money, because it will help bring you out of your sympathetic nervous system and into your parasympathetic nervous system and help collapse time in your business. So go register for that free course now. Thanks, I'm Alaina, and I'll see you on the next video.